Here they be dragons. Or one dragon. But I can deal with one. One dragon's good enough for me. So here's my review for The Hobbit, The Desolation of Smaug. It's a cool name, Smaug. This is the second film in the Hobbit trilogy based on J.R.R. Tolkien's one book, The Hobbit. After gaining the dwarf's trust in the last movie, mainly Thorin's, Bilbo Baggins, played again by Martin Freeman, joins them and Gandalf the Grey, played again by Sir Ian McKellen, as they go to reclaim the dwarf's homeland of Erebor from the evil dragon Smaug, who is voiced by Benedict Cumberbatch. But we'll get to that later. During this part of the journey, they come across many things. They come across giant spiders, they come across orcs that serve Thorin's enemy, and they come across the Mirkwood elves, including Legolas, played again by Orlando Bloom, and a new character named Tauriel, played by Evangeline Lilly. Now, you saw my review for The Hobbit, An Unexpected Journey that I did back last year. I moved it to this YouTube channel recently, and I gotta say, thinking back at it, I still like it, but I think I might have to notch my rating for it down to good but not great, because it did have a lot of issues. This movie, Desolation of Smaug, I think is the best of the movies so far. That is, the Hobbit movies. It's nowhere near as good as the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I think it has some very spectacular action set pieces, much like the first movie. The barrel scene, it's very theme park-ish, yes, but it's also exciting, because not only do you have the dwarves and Bilbo riding in those barrels, but they're being chased by a bunch of orcs who are trying to kill them, as well as the elves who are trying to kill the orcs, trying to kill the dwarves. All the actors in the first movie are once again good like they were in the first movie. Martin Freeman, I think, is a really good Bilbo Baggins. And throughout the movie, I seem to like him a lot more than I do Frodo. I may prefer the Lord of the Rings trilogy over these movies, but I just like Bilbo more as a character. He's more proactive, he's more courageous than Frodo is, and I just like Bilbo's spirit. And then, again, Gandalf the Grey, who is played once again by Ian McKellen. Sir Ian McKellen, my mistake. And as far as I'm concerned, he is, just like in the Lord of the Rings movies, he is Gandalf. Although, I will say he's not in the movie as much as I had hoped to be, which is a shame, because in all of these Middle-earth movies, Gandalf is my favorite character. Now, in terms of the new cast members, Orlando Bloom isn't technically new to this series, because he was Legolas in the first 3 Lord of the Rings movies, but I think he did a fine job. I mean, I didn't enjoy him as much as in the other movies. And for whatever reason, his eyes seem a little more blue than normal. I mean, they're just so artificially blue. I mean, it's not a big problem, but it was just something that it kind of weirded me out for a bit. It annoyed me for a bit, but not enough to ruin what the movie has. One character I did like was Tauriel, who is a character not featured in the book, The Hobbit, or the Lord of the Rings books in general. It was a character created by Peter Jackson to basically expand this book into 3 movies. What I like about her is that she is very different from all the other elves. Because as we know, there's this racial diversity thing between the elves and the dwarves. The elves are so pretty and so full of themselves, the dwarves are rugged and, let's face it, short. She's the one character who manages to see past the fact that they're dwarves. And I really appreciate that, because a lot of the other elves in this movie are just, they're kind of dicks. But I really, really do like Tauriel, and I think Evangeline Lilly does a really good job in her role. Well, I will say, there is this little weird thing where there's some romantic relationships between her and one of the dwarves, Keeley, who's one of my favorite dwarves in the group. And it's not really that focused on, but it's a bit odd. I don't think it should be a big problem with anyone, like, oh, just some simple love story, because I'm just going to say, they share a small moment in the beginning, which is not too romantic, and then one near the end, which doesn't last that long either. But I have a feeling that this might play a bigger part in the last movie. And that one part at the end, just, again, it happens very briefly. And it's during a point where she and Legolas come in to save a town from orcs. A town that is just not far from the Lonely Mountain where Smaug is sleeping. And speaking of Smaug, Benedict Cumberbatch in this movie, he is awesome as Smaug. I'm still kind of confused how he did motion capture for a dragon, but regardless, he's got the voice for this character. He is menacing, he commands the screen whenever he speaks, and Smaug is awesome to look at. Yes, he does look like every other dragon in the world, but he's still great. I applaud the guys at Weta for making him come to life, and for Benedict Cumberbatch to bringing that character to life with his voice and acting. So that I really, really loved. Basically, Smaug in this movie, all the scenes with him, I compare to the Gollum scenes in An Unexpected Journey. They're just so good that they're worth seeing on their own. But it doesn't help the movie's shortcomings, unfortunately. This movie does suffer from a lot of the problems that An Unexpected Journey suffered from. Because Peter Jackson tried to make one book that is smaller than any one of the Lord of the Rings books into 3 movies, it has very, very slow moments, and the pacing is just all over the place. It's a mess. But I feel that's a problem that Peter Jackson has in general. I mean, don't get me wrong, he is a great director. He's a good storyteller. He can really bring out the visual effects in a movie and tell his team to make it top-notch. He didn't win those Oscars for Return of the King for nothing, but I feel like even with Return of the King, as much as I love the Lord of the Rings trilogy and his remake of King Kong, there are just a lot of moments that are much slower than they need to be. And here, it's no exception. But the movie was never boring. There was never a moment where I wanted to look at my clock. But another problem this movie has is that because it's the middle chapter, similar to Two Towers, it suffers from the issue of it doesn't have a proper beginning, and it does not have a fully closed ending. It leaves, again, with another cliffhanger. But on the good side, that cliffhanger did make me go, okay, I want to see the next movie soon. And yeah, we gotta wait a year till we get to see The Hobbit there and back again, but I can wait. Again, the movie has a lot of the same problems that the first movie did. Again, it's not as good as the original Lord of the Rings trilogy, but it's still good. It's an improvement over An Unexpected Journey. Great visual effects, great action, the acting's good. Music is really good. Just don't see it at 48 frames per second. The only reason I ever bothered to see this movie in 48 frames per second because I went to see it with someone who missed out on the first movie and wanted to see how this technology looked. And I just honestly don't think the frame rate is good for these kind of movies. It might get better over time because there were some points in this movie that looked better with the high frame rate than moments in the first movie did. I don't want the high frame rate to be everywhere in these movies, these big Hollywood movies, and I'm still in the impression that The Hobbit was, I guess, the wrong place to start using this technology. But again, the 48 frames per second screenings aren't showing everywhere. It's still a really good movie. Go see it at 24 frames per second. You'll enjoy it more. And so I'm going to say that the movie is good, but it's not great. However, I have a feeling that those who didn't like the first Hobbit movie might enjoy this one a little more. So that is my review of The Hobbit, The Desolation of Smaug. Leave a comment if you've seen the movie, subscribe to my channel for more stuff in the future. Check out my other channel, AlexG8462. You can follow me on Twitter at AlexG8462, Instagram at TheRealMrRobinson, and go like my Facebook page, /The Cinemas with Mr. Robinson. Share me with your friends and tell them about me, and remember to know it before you see it. This has been The Cinemas with Mr. Robinson, and I'll see you guys later.